Spoiler warning. The following discussion will contain spoilers. We recommend checking out the movie first, then coming back to hang with us. But if you don't care about that, glad to have you here. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Real Review. My name's Kevin.
And I'm John.
And we are The Real Movie Guys. It's March, so that can only mean one thing. Real March Madness. It's a tale as old as time, Pixar Versus Disney. And abroad to end it all, we have selected 8 films from each studio, a total of 16 movies, will battle head-to-head for superiority. On today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at Finding Nemo. After his son is captured in the Great Barrier Reef and taken to Sydney, a timid clownfish sets out on a journey to bring him home. Now, John, do you have a lot of fond memories of Finding Nemo when this movie came out initially?
I barely remember when this movie was released. That was the thing.
Well, I remember when this was released. This was a big deal. This was a little bit after Toy Story, right? So there was some time, and we know this movie came out, and it was like, oh my God, it's the Pixar. They're doing it again. It's this big flagship film that's going to be representing the brand. Everyone loves Finding Nemo. The clownfish was everywhere. Kids were flushing their fish down the toilets because they thought they were saving them from death because of this movie. It was a huge thing. It was a huge deal. You couldn't even buy clownfish anywhere for a while. That's how big this movie was. I hate to tell you, I don't like Finding Nemo. I am not a fan of this movie whatsoever. Let's talk about some positive things. Before we dive deep into my issues with this movie, there's some stuff I do have to praise about it, right? There are definitely a lot of positives, for sure. One thing you have to admit is the accomplishment in CGI animation. This movie is absolutely beautiful for the time period. Just the whole aspect of the use of lighting in this movie is fantastic. Especially more recently, I think I realized when I was watching this in 4K, you can actually see the scales of the individual fish slightly reflecting when the light hits them. That's really impressive for the time period. I mean, look at what we had before this. We had Toy Story, which they could barely get textures down at some point. And then you had Finding Nemo, where they're literally showing you the anatomy of a fish. And not even that, just the colors, the way the fish are swimming, just the overall design of this movie, I think is really, really good.
Especially the colors that they go with really pop out on the screen and make it look even better than I thought it was going to look. It seems like they capture everything in how you would think it is under the sea, you know?
Right, and I feel like that's tough to do, I feel like, on a lot of levels, because they're actually, for the most part, it appears that the way they have the fish swimming is accurate to how a fish would swim. Like when you look at Nemo, the way he moves, one fin's smaller than the other one, so he has to kind of move that one extra fast and keep the other one going just so he keeps his balance correct.
What's wrong with his fin? He looks funny! Ow! Hey, what'd I do?
Be nice. It's his first time at school.
He was born with it, kids. We call it his lucky fin.
Dad.
Anatomically, I think that looks correct, to be honest with you. Just prefacing the way they use color in this movie, you have such a drab ocean scene for the most part. I mean, with the ocean, it's really just this shades of blue, right? Shades of blue and black and a little bit of white thrown in there. So the way they use the vibrancy of the fish, especially, Dory and Marlin and even Nemo when he's actually in the ocean, they actually use just these vibrant colors to really make them stand out. And that's what attracts kids right away. So I can see how that kind of just pulls kids in. What I want to go into also, though, is I think the story isn't terrible. I think what Pixar was going for in some ways does work. I think just having that relatable story of having a child and wanting to protect them from everything.
Just because you're scared of the ocean.
Clearly you're not ready and you're not coming back until you are. You think you can do these things, but you just can't, Nemo.
I hate you.
And just going to those great lengths, I think is a fun story. I think it's more maybe towards adults, right? I think there's something there for the adults audience a little bit more, which we saw Pixar, starting to explore once again. Their famous theming of, is this for adults or for children? I think this movie is for both. I don't think it's for one or the other more so, but I think just that whole theme of wanting to protect your child, that's a fun theme to explore in a movie like this.
I thought altogether the story was pretty good. I thought, of course, it has some loopholes and dulls in it.
Sure.
But overall, the message, I feel like, for the story is very good. That you can't protect your kid from every little thing in life.
I promised him I'd never let anything happen to him.
That's a funny thing to promise.
What?
Well, you can't never let anything happen to him. Then nothing would ever happen to him.
No, I think it's really important, especially we get to see Nemo's story. It is interesting, just we get to see him kind of grow and become more independent of his father. They try to use those polarizing views to different degrees of success, which I think we'll talk about a little bit later. Also, I have to give props to this movie. It's not afraid to go really dark, because the beginning of this movie, I always forget how extremely dark this is. I would like to equate this to, it's a home invasion story. Literally at the beginning of this movie, like when I was watching this, I think of like those true crime shows where someone's like knocking at the door and they're busting in. It reminds me of like The Strangers when we watched that during our Real Horror Month when we were talking about that. It's literally what that is.
Where did everybody go?
Marlon's like,
Coral, get inside the house, Coral. No, Coral, don't. They'll be fine. Just get inside, you, right now.
I'm like, what is going on here? Like, this is literally some really dark stuff going on in this movie. I don't remember it being that dark when I initially watched it, but I think just on that second glance, wow. And does it fit? There's a conversation to be had because of how dark it is, but I enjoyed it. I'm not going to lie to you. I thought it was some fun stuff right there. And I don't know what it is. Maybe just because I'm older and I'm more experienced with just like different film genres and seeing different things. But for whatever reason, you know, if you didn't remember that part before, it sticks with you now at this point.
It's okay. Daddy's here. Daddy's got you. I promise I will never let anything happen to you. Nemo.
Because again, that's literally a home invasion fish storyline right at the beginning of this movie. And I don't know, you know, again, I don't know if it fits necessarily in the tone of this movie. It's there, and for sure it's the darkest thing, because while other things like do happen that are semi kind of dark in this movie, nothing gets close to that level. More so than I think the main characters, I think I actually enjoy a lot more of the side characters in this movie. I find myself really enjoying, of course, Gil, voiced by the amazing Green Goblin himself, Willem Dafoe, being that striped, I don't know what kind of fish he is. Is he a pelican fish? Is that what they call them? I really like him being in the tank. I think he's fantastic. A lot of his dialogue, too, I always feel like he would say that in real life to his kids.
Can you help me?
No. You get yourself in there, you can get yourself out.
Gil.
I just want to see him do it, okay? Calm down. Now, alternate wiggling your fins and your tail.
I can't. I have a bad fin.
Never stop me.
I can just see that stern Willem Dafoe. Like, I don't even think he was acting. I feel like they were just like chilling with a microphone with him at home, just having him record lines, because he's that kind of gruff kind of guy. I also enjoy Crush, who's voiced by Andrew Stanton. If you don't know Andrew Stanton, he does a lot of writing actually for the Pixar movies. So pretty much anything you've seen, he's written at this point. I like his character of Crush. While it's not super original, it gives me fond memories of the Ninja Turtle days, the Cowabunga surfs up dude.
You so totally rock, Squirt! So give me some fin. Noggin. Dude.
I like that, and that sticks with you. And I'd be remiss if I didn't speak about one of the most memorable characters in the film. Yes, of course, we're talking about the great Bruce himself, voiced by Barry Humphries. At first, they kind of subvert expectations a lot with that scene. When you see this giant great white shark, you're expecting it to be the end of the story for these fish, and it turns out they have the most memorable scene in the movie is...
The meeting has officially come to order. Let us all say the pledge. I am a nice shark, not a mindless eating machine. If I am to change this image, I must first change myself. Fish are friends, not food.
And they have all these sharks trying to become pseudo, friends of fish and like wean off eating fish and find other dietary means. I like that a lot. They have like an AA meeting for sharks about killing fish, and Marlin and Dory have a weird interaction where they're at the meeting and they're trying to like get information from the sharks. When Bruce actually goes crazy and goes after him, that's a pretty scary scene too. Maybe not to the level of the past scene we were talking about, but just to see his eye literally turn like solid black, it just reminds me of Jaws all over again. I really like that scene, and Bruce is a memorable character. Not as in it really as much as I remember for whatever reason. Again, I'm having like maybe a little bit of haze going back into this movie, because for whatever reason I thought Bruce was like in the journey more, but no, he's not really in it that long. Just in that scene, of course, with the sharks, and then a little bit towards the end, and that's kind of it for him.
I think the scenes that he's in, he captures it so much that like it makes you think that he's in it more, but really just like the scenes that he does and that Bruce is in are just such great scenes.
Yeah, I think it's just that visual, just like I said, that those giant sharks compared to these little tiny fish where they could just snap at any moment, but they're like, no, we want to be friends with you. And you're like, are you sure? Are you really? Like, you're just questioning it the whole time. But again, it's so memorable, and it crafts it extremely well, in my opinion. I think overall, for the most part, I think that the voice casting is well done. Especially you have Albert Brooks bringing in Marlin with his dry comedy, a clownfish that can't tell a good clownfish joke.
Come on, Cloudy.
Yeah, do something funny.
Yeah, all right, I know one joke. There's a mollusk, see, and he walks up to a sea. Well, he doesn't walk up, he swims up. Well, actually, the mollusk isn't moving. He's in one place, and then the sea cucumber, well, I'm mixed up. There was a mollusk and a sea cucumber. None of them were walking, so forget.
The worrisome dad, I think he captures that absolutely perfectly.
Yeah, I had a tough time when my oldest went out on the drop-off.
They just gotta grow up some. The drop-off? They're going to the drop-off? What are you insane? Why don't we just fry them up now and serve them with chips?
Hey, Marty, calm down.
Don't tell me to be calm, pony boy.
Pony boy? You know, for a clownfish, he really isn't that funny.
Pity.
Ellen DeGeneres is what it is. I have some thoughts on Dory, but she pulls it off. She pulls off the voice that they're going for. The questionable fish, you can't remember anything that's going on. I think she brings in a serviceable performance.
I've seen a boat.
You have?
Uh-huh, and it passed by not too long ago.
A white one?
Hi, I'm Dory.
Where? Which way?
It went, this way. It went this way. Follow me.
Again, maybe nothing over the top, but all the voices that they pick overall for this movie, I feel like match their characters. The last thing I really do like, and you keep mentioning how much you like the story. So with the story, like I said, I like the theming, I like the idea of it. My most favorite part, I think, of this movie isn't necessarily the ocean scenes. It's more the fish tank storyline with Nemo. I thought that was really creative and a little bit more out of the box. Like the ocean story, I feel like is something we've seen time and time again in different ways, but them being trapped in a fish tank and trying to escape, maybe it doesn't work as a full feature-length film, which is why it's not the whole entirety of the movie. But for whatever reason, I just like that idea. They're stuck in the dentist's office. Nemo's trying to get out, and the other fish are trying to help him, and they have to come up with these different ways to try and escape and everything like that. I like that idea. I like that concept. I think it's really interesting. Maybe more so, I think, than the actual search storyline that we're dealt with the rest of the film. Now, John, I want you to kick this off, because I know you've been chomping at the bit there. No pun intended. You had at least one negative that's been on your mind for this film.
Oh yeah, my one negative is Dory.
I agree.
She is the absolute. I'm sorry to say this, but she's like the absolute worst character. And then the fact that they made a whole film based on Dory.
Oh, we're not even talking about Finding Dory, but yeah, I don't like that at all. But now, John, go into me. What do you think makes her character so bad necessarily? What do you think is like that crux that makes her so bad?
Just everything. Everything she says is kind of just annoying and like doesn't add anything to like the story, really. I feel almost like tiresome at a point where like, okay, like we understand she's forgetful and everything, but there's at a point where you're like, all right, this gets old now, you know?
I agree. So you're saying essentially the gimmick gets old fast, right?
Yes.
You know, once he can only hear it so many times where she's forgetting things, and I just want to forget her character because it gets on your nerves real quick.
Oh yeah.
I hate to say this on top of that, but because of this, I think Marlin comes off unlikable too. The two of them together at times really grinded my gears. No joke. Like their interactions between each other, I couldn't stand some of the banter between the two.
Hey, Mr. Grumpy Gills. When life gets you down, you know what you gotta do?
I don't want to know what you gotta do.
Just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep swimming, swimming, swimming. What do? We swim, swim.
Dory, no singing.
Oh,
Dory.
I love to swim in.
Dory.
When you want to swim.
Him just being the all worrisome father. Oh, I'm so scared. I don't know what's going on. Nemo, where are you? Nemo and Nemo or whatever. She like misnames him all the time and everything like that.
Hi, Elmo.
Nemo.
Nemo.
I mean, that's kind of funny, but at the same time, it gets old super fast. And their banter, while there is a little bit of chemistry there, it's just too annoying. And their scenes are maybe my least interesting scenes, I think, in the movie. I don't know if Dory was really a necessary character to have in this movie.
Her and Marlin, like when they're going back and forth at each other, you're just kind of like, oh my God, this is like a tired old married couple, like going through this show. Like, what the heck?
Yeah. And I think one of the best scenes that exemplifies that, I don't know if you would agree, is the School of Fish scene where they're trying to get directions onto where Nemo actually is. And because he's in Sydney, Australia, they're able to find out. And this group of fish is trying to point them in the right direction. That scene goes on for way too freaking long. And they're just going back and forth and back and forth. And don't get me wrong, I love John Ratzenberger, who, voiced Ham, and he's in every Pixar movie, and this was his cameo, was the School of Fish. I love his character, but by God, with all three of them together, talking back and forth, and just having like, oh, this is, and they're behind their back making fun of them while they're talking, and Marlin's getting angry, and Dory's getting confused and more confused as a
whale of a tail, I'll tell you, lad, a whale of a tail.
They're good.
Would somebody please give me directions?
Would somebody please give me directions?
I'm serious.
Blah, 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 me, me, blah, 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 blah.
It annoys me, man. I couldn't take it. It really downs my enjoyment of this movie completely at some points, especially because we spend so much time with them. I feel like there's something I wanted to talk to you a little bit about was, I feel like, unfortunately, much of the story seems like a bunch of good ideas of underwater adventures, and I feel like they're just loosely stitched together by this gotta find my son plot. The whole overarching story is they're trying to find Nemo. Everything they come across, whether it's the sharks, the divers, like the School of Fish, or the birds, and none of it really feels gelled together. Even I love the turtles, don't get me wrong. I love Crush and his son when they meet them. I think that's interesting. I feel like they're all loosely connected. I feel like, again, I've said this before in other reviews, when you see a movie and the writers have all these really good ideas about things they want to put into maybe an underwater themed adventure in this case, but I feel like they didn't know how to connect that story. And maybe, like I said, Nemo's doesn't suffer from this because he's in one location. And again, the whole plot is he's trying to escape. He's trying to escape. Okay, we got that. We don't need this. But Marlin and Dory, because their characters are so annoying and they're in these interesting scenes, but it just feels like scene to scene to scene, right? I feel like there's really no connective tissue between any of these somewhat interesting scenes that they've crafted. Because I want to like it. I want to like the story, but I just can't find myself being so invested because, again, they all feel so loosely fit together. And this goes into my biggest problem with this movie. And it really just has to do with Marlin and Nemo's adventures. Having them separated, I don't think was a good idea. While I compliment the fish tank scene, and I said I like that, and the Marlin adventure, it is what it is. Having a father-son story like this about a son wanting to get away from his father and be on his own, and a father being overprotective, I don't think it works separately. I don't think it was necessarily that successful. I would have to equate it to a far better Disney movie. I suggest watching a Goofy movie. That movie is very underrated in my opinion, but it captures the same exact story with the father Goofy and his son Max, where Goofy's being overprotective and wants to spend all this quality time with his son, but his son wants nothing to do with him. He's trying to get away. If you want to see a father-son adventure done the correct way, I think that's the movie to watch. I don't think Finding Nemo's really it.
Just this movie seemed to me was a long way to tell a short story.
And I think that has to do with it. You exactly nailed it right on the head. Because of that disjointed feeling with all these different storylines, the movie just feels like it's spinning its wheels. It's just going through the motions at this point, and it becomes boring. A lot of the scenes actually become boring, where keep swimming, keep spinning your wheels, keep spinning your wheels. That's essentially what this movie's doing till we get to the climax. The only time I really get my interest piqued, I think, is more so during those Nemo scenes that are more interesting. And it also falls under the unfortunate banner of, I feel like Pixar doing the same thing again. Something doing something while you're not looking, almost. I feel like it wasn't as much in this movie, but it is too. What's your fish tank doing while you're not paying attention? Pixar just really loves that formula. Ever since they got away with it in Toy Story, I feel like you can almost equate it to every single Pixar movie in some way, unfortunately. And, I can overlook it when you do it well, but in this case, it does bother me a little bit. Just like, all right, you're kind of just still holding on to that concept. It worked for you so well the first time. So I think we're at that point where we're going to give our final scores. I'm going to give Finding Nemo a C+.
Keep going! He's crazy!
I got something to tell ya!
Mine.
It's fine for what it is. Do I think it's the worst Pixar movie? Absolutely not. But it is disappointing on a lot of levels. And again, I think I can understand why kids, and I think a lot of families do enjoy this. The kids love the bright colors. They love the characters of the fish. You know, they get real excited. I get it. You know, it's fine. I think it's an innocent movie overall. But if you're looking for that quality Pixar story that we've come to appreciate and to learn, I think especially more so during this month after going back and watching a lot of movies, I don't think Finding Nemo's it. I think it's disappointing on a lot of levels. I'm surprised it got a sequel. Maybe someday we'll talk about that. Hopefully not for our case, but you never know. Again, just Finding Nemo doesn't do it for me. John, where do you stand with this film?
I give this film a B minus, actually.
You mean you don't like me?
No, of course I like you. It's because I like you I don't want to be with you. It's a complicated emotion.
It definitely sold a lot of clownfish to people, but
Killed
the
a lot
story
of
was
fish.
the story was definitely decent too. But like all the plot holes in it, and just certain things I didn't like, Dory especially, like, just really threw me off this movie. And the fact that they have a sequel to this is
It's baffling.
absolutely...
It's baffling.
Yes.
That's the best word to describe it. It's baffling how that happened. Money talks, though. It's Disney and Pixar. What do you expect?
That's right.
But again, I'm interested to see how this compares. We have this versus The Little Mermaid, which is considered by many a major Disney classic. Another underwater film. Makes sense why they're versing each other. I know. We're so original sometimes. It's going to be interesting, though. I can't wait to see what you guys think when we get to that film, and then when we get to the end of this series and see where these movies stand. John, where can the people find us at home?
Well, you can catch all that and more on our YouTube page, The Real Movie Guys on YouTube. Go over there, like our channel, subscribe. Let us know your opinion about this movie or other reviews that we have done in the past. You could also check us out on Twitter, at The Real Movie Guy on Twitter. Also on Instagram, we're at The Real Movie Guy on Instagram. You can follow us over there. That's where you can vote for your favorite ones in our battle to the end of Disney vs. Pixar. You can also listen to us on many podcasting platforms such as...
Yes, for your listening pleasure, we are also available in podcast format, iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcast, Overcast, Breaker, Radio Public, and Pocket Casts. Be sure to give us a listen at any of those fine places. If you are right now, hey, greatly appreciate it. Just search out Real Movie Guys. We should pop right up. Thank you again all so much for joining us for this episode of The Real Review. My name's Kevin. That guy over there, he is John. We are your Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. The battle rages on as Real March Madness Disney vs. Pixar continues. We will catch you next time.
Fish are friends, not food.